Good morning, Tampa Bay. What is going on? Wednesday edition. Channelside in the morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network. Having Wi-Fi, having internet issues today. I'm sorry about this. Hopefully you guys can at least hear the voice. You don't necessarily need to see the face, right, guys? But anyway, we're going again. We got to go heavy on the Bucs once again. We've got no choice. Got to go heavy on the Bucs. 53-man roster is out. It is available. Obviously, we tweeted out our official graphic for Channelside Sports. The Unfinished Business World Tour depth chart is what we're calling it. We're going to chop it up. We're going to talk about the moves that were made, who didn't make the cut, who made the cut, who didn't make the cut and should have made the cut. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of things and interesting moves that were made yesterday, and we're trying to figure this out as we go through and kind of dissect where the Buccaneers stand. And like I said, it's not anything that's too egregious. There's a few different moves, and before we even start, let me pull up. This is the Buccaneers depth chart 3.0, of course, brought to you by us over here at Channelside Sports. Yeah, I mean, we just take a peek. This is what we're looking at right now. Nothing crazy, right? Nothing too crazy, but here we are. What you notice, for me, and we're going to talk about this a lot, and I want to hear from you guys in the chat as well. Tyler Johnson didn't make the team. Tyler Johnson didn't make the cut. We still see Scotty Miller. We still see Jalen Darden. Of course, Chris Godwin is out on an island by himself over on the right side of the line. And then, of course, noticeable by his absence is Logan Ryan behind Antoine Winfield Jr. Obviously, we can assume that will change once they can officially start moving Ryan Jensen to IR, which will obviously allow the extra roster spot for Logan Ryan to be re-signed. He will not go through waivers because he is a vested veteran player. Therefore, it was a very smart move for the Buccaneers to remove and take out Logan Ryan. It was just a smart move overall because you don't have to worry about another team picking him up. That's why he was cut. There's nothing else crazy about it. And that's kind of it. Fatukasi is behind Levante David now, which I find interesting, which is also cool that he made the team because he stood out in preseason. I think a lot of you know where I'm going to kind of go with this. And like I said, if you're watching this, first of all, thank you for tuning in this morning. Thank you. Appreciate it. We do this Monday through Friday from 8 to 9. Every time, every day, every weekday. This is what we do. So thank you if you're tuning in. Thank you if you're a regular tuner-inner. Tag a friend, tell a friend, and let's keep growing this bad boy. But I want to hear from you guys. Tyler Johnson was my shocker. I said that I've covered the NFL for quite a long time now. Obviously, now I'm doing this on my own here with Channelside Sports, trying a little bit of a different avenue. But I've covered the NFL for quite a long period of time for various outlets and whatever. And there's always a shocker. There's always a shocking roster cut. Logan Ryan, not necessarily a shocker if you understand the business. And if you don't understand the business, that's totally fine. But Logan Ryan was not a shocking cut to me. Tyler Johnson, on the other hand, Tyler Johnson was a shocking cut to me. I don't understand how you lose Tyler Johnson. I don't understand how that happens. How do you cut Tyler Johnson when he was by far your best wide receiver? Out of the guys that were trying to make the team, Tyler Johnson was your best wide receiver in the preseason. How do you try to cut Tyler Johnson? James in the chat Thank you for the comment. Here's the thing about the chemistry. Everybody's been preaching the chemistry, right? And you know me, I'm a stats guy. I'm an analyst. I'm an analytic guy. There's not a whole lot of chemistry. There's not a lot of chemistry difference. I'll pull these up. I was actually talking with Greg Allman this morning, and where am I? All right. So in the 2 seasons that Tom Brady played with Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson is almost 12% better in terms of his catch percentage. Tyler Johnson has 10 more receptions. Scotty Miller has 10 more receiving yards. And our deep threat in Scotty Miller has 11.4 yards per reception to 11.0 yards per reception to Tyler Johnson. If our deep threat is Scotty Miller, and that's what a lot of people are saying, well, that's why we kept Scotty Miller. He's the deep threat. This is the guy that we need. If our deep threat is averaging less than half a yard more per reception than a guy who was just another wide receiver, as some people are calling Tyler Johnson, like, what? I get it. A lot of people, and Brashad Perriman's name has been coming up a lot because obviously he's currently on the roster. And when people are trying to make the comparisons here, a lot of fans, especially on Twitter, a lot of fans are sitting here looking and going, well, Brashad Perriman is really hanging on by the, he's really hanging on because he was just, he had a great game against Buffalo, and that's why he's making the team. That's why he is where he is. That's why he's here. We could say the same thing again for Scotty Miller. We're hanging on to that Green Bay game for dear life for Scotty Miller. And look, we love Scotty Miller. We love Scotty Miller. There's nothing. This isn't a slight at Scotty Miller. This is a slight on a guy who's displayed a smaller pool of talent than Tyler Johnson has. They've both been in the league basically the same amount of time. They've almost identical chemistry, except Tyler Johnson is just a better catcher than Scotty Miller is. And that's realistically, that's what it boils down to. That's all that it is. It's crazy to me. I'm responding. We're getting chats all over the place. I'm getting text messages. If you're text messaging me comments to the show and you're not tuned into the YouTube, you're very lucky that I just responded to you, but it ain't going to happen again. Tune into our YouTube. If you're on YouTube, again, thank you very much. Hit the thumbs up. The thumbs up, the more people we get in here, the more thumbs up we get when we do the shows live in the morning, the more fans that are just going to come in here, the more fans that are going to interact, not only with me, but with you in the chat. And it just makes it for a hell of a lot more fun for everybody. So if you're over there, thank you very much. If you're on Facebook, whatever, I appreciate it regardless, nonetheless. I'm still shocked that Tyler Johnson, we all assumed that there were 5 wide receiver positions already spoken for. We knew that Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, and Russell Gage were the top 4. But we really had no idea. We had no idea that Tyler Johnson was not going to make this team. We didn't. We had no idea that he was not going to make this team. We assumed that he had it wrapped up. He was a stud in preseason. And here's my question. If we use the preseason to evaluate talent, to see players' performance at game speed, and to just round out our rosters and find answers at the questionable positions that we have, right? We knew that we were going to keep 6, maybe 7 wide receivers. There were 4 guaranteed slots at wide receiver that were already spoken for. Right? There were 4. But Tyler Johnson came along in week 1 of the preseason and go, "Oh wow. Yep, Tyler Johnson understands the assignment. Tyler Johnson, he's number 5. There's no way that Tyler Johnson doesn't make this team. Tyler Johnson is number 5 for sure." Well, and then Tyler Johnson does make the team. So my question to you guys is, what's the point of preseason if we're going to hold out most of our starters, and B, going to cut the players that are standouts? Because this is not just a Tampa Bay Buccaneers thing, right? This is an every team thing. Every team makes these shocking. That's why I said it. I didn't say that the Buccaneers were going to release somebody and it was going to shock the world, because for me, like, I'm not an insider with the Buccaneers. I didn't have inside knowledge of, oh yeah, hey, they're going to release a shocker, guys, get ready. But I've covered the league long enough to know that every team does this. So where you're looking at it and going, well, what the hell? How does this happen? You know, was Brady, and you know what? Maybe that's what it is, Gene. Thank you for the comment as well. Was Brady happy with Tyler Johnson? I don't know. If I'm looking at the stats and I'm a quarterback, I'm much more happy with Tyler Johnson than I am with Scotty Miller, because he can catch the ball a hell of a lot better than Scotty Miller has shown us. We can all have our own opinions. We can all have our own thought processes, and we can all have these different thoughts on each player. But when it comes down to it, the numbers don't lie. And that's what it boils down to. The numbers don't lie. Scotty Miller has a 12% less catch percentage than Tyler Johnson does. He averages 0.4 more yards per reception than Tyler Johnson does. We all know that Tom Brady does have some say in what goes on in the roster building. Anybody that wants to debate that, I think you're kind of out of your mind, and I think that you're largely missing the point of having the greatest of all time on your roster. He gets some say, right? There's no question about it. He's going to get some say. And I did say yesterday, if you guys tuned into the show yesterday, I did say yesterday that I don't think he deserves it. And by he, I mean Scotty Miller. I don't think he deserves to make this team, but because he is friendly with Tom Brady, I think he's going to make the team. I, however, thought that Scotty Miller was going to make the team over Jalen Darden. I did not think Scotty Miller was going to make the team over Tyler Johnson. I did not think Brashad Perriman was going to make the team over Tyler Johnson. And look, I'm a Brashad Perriman fan, and I am going to utilize the sampling that we have of Brashad Perriman. When Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down the year before Tom Brady came, Brashad Perriman stepped up in a big way for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He answered the call. He was wide receiver 1, and he filled the role just fine. Not to mention his dad was a Detroit Lion, so maybe there's a little bias for me in there. But like, I like Brashad Perriman. Do I think that people are hanging on to that Buffalo Bills game that he had? Possibly. I possibly do. But we have to use the sample size. We have to understand where we're coming from and how things are and how we got here. What has Scotty Miller done for us? Like, what have you done for me lately? I'm not sure. I'm just I'm still trying to process how that all happened. You know, like a guy like Devin Tompkins. Devin Tompkins, we can look at Devin Tompkins and we can see the quickness and the elusiveness and the agility. We can see these things from Devin Tompkins and go, not quite there yet. Maybe in the future. Kalen Geiger, the same thing. Possibly in the future, he could be a solid hand, but as it is right now, he's not there. I think Rick Stroud summed it up perfectly yesterday when they released their undrafted free agents. The Buccaneers are not buying any green bananas. I think that is both the best phrase and the worst phrase I've ever heard at the same time, and I love it because it is accurate. When you go to the grocery store, you don't look for the green bananas. You look for the ones that are already yellow that you can use now. So it's a perfect analogy for that. But is Devin Tompkins going to make it through waivers to where the Buccaneers can sign him? Because I think Devin Tompkins has so much of an upside, especially in the return game and possibly in the slot in the future, of course, that you want a guy like Devin Tompkins on your team. I think that's where you want to be. You want to see a Devin Tompkins on your practice squad. So when you start rounding out the 16-player practice squad, I think Devin Tompkins, if he makes it through waivers, finds himself on this team. Tyler Johnson, I'm still, like I said, I'm still trying to process that. Happened yesterday, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like, are we being pranked? Are we being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher going to come out on the Buccaneers social media and be like, ha, gotcha? Not sure. Another shot. I'm going to tie this to the Buccaneers here as well. Here's another shocking release. David Blau for the Detroit Lions was released. We all thought that he was going to win QB2 for the Detroit Lions because Tim Boyle, TB12 up there, is not very good. And how am I going to tie this to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pass? Because I would be more confident in the Buccaneers starting David Blau than I would be with them starting Kyle Trask. And no, I'm not kidding. If we need a quarterback to step up, if we need a backup quarterback to fill the void after Tom Brady leaves, I'm 100% more confident in David Blau's ability than I am in Kyle Trask's ability. David Blau has played in regular season games. David Blau has made some fantastic throws in regular season games. And guys, this is where we are here. Kyle Trask is still QB3. I know it's Trask to the future. I know you guys all love Kyle Trask. I know everybody wants Kyle Trask to succeed. I want Kyle Trask to succeed because he's already here. But it wasn't even close in the QB2 to QB3 battle between Gabbert and Trask. If Blaine Gabbert is a career backup quarterback, let me ask you this. If Blaine Gabbert is a career backup quarterback outside of his little stint in Jacksonville at the beginning of his career, he took out Colin Kaepernick's starting job, but Kaepernick was hurt. Whatever, it happens. If Kyle Trask cannot beat out a career backup, what does that say about him? What is that saying about Kyle Trask's progression if he can't beat out Blaine Gabbert? And it's not even close, and it's a landslide between him and Blaine Gabbert. Like, that to me is just that's absolutely insane. It's crazy to me. And no, I'm still not kidding. Sign David Blau. Sign David Blau to a 2-3 year deal. You can get him very cheap. You can get David Blau very cheap. You can get him in your system right now. You cut Ryan Griffin. Make it happen. Because David Blau has a higher upside than Kyle Trask does at this point. Yes, like I said, we all want him to succeed. We all want Kyle Trask to do well. Kyle Trask is from Florida. A Gator. He's already on the team. We use a second-round draft pick on him. Yada, yada, yada. I get it. I understand it. He hasn't progressed. And we talk about Tyler Johnson making the team because for some reason he didn't progress the way that the Buccaneers wanted to or whatever. Kyle Trask is no different. Why would Kyle Trask get a pass when we just cut Tyler Johnson. We just cut our best preseason wide receiver to make room for other guys that didn't look as good. It's a business, guys. It's 100% a business. I'm assuming that Gene in the chat, I'm assuming that you are correct. The Bucs are going to bring in a free agent next year. Outside of him falling flat on his face, I'm still a fan of Baker Mayfield. Obviously, Lamar Jackson still does not have a contract. That's always an option. Does he fit the scheme as a mobile quarterback? Not necessarily. But if you can get a former MVP quarterback, you try to exhaust all of those options and figure it out to make it work with an MVP quarterback. Here's the thing about the possibility of bringing in a Lamar Jackson. We can assume that Byron Leftwich is going to be gone next year as well. Like, he's not going to be the offensive coordinator of the Bucs. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. I think that's a fair and a safe assumption. Unless the Bucs completely fall flat this season, which I think largely depends on how they come out of the gates with these first 5 games. But I think that Byron Leftwich is gone. So you can look at somebody like a Lamar Jackson because you now have an open playbook. You don't have all of these set pocket passing plays if you're going to bring in somebody like a Lamar Jackson. And I know people don't like him because he's a mobile quarterback, and that's fine. People say he can't pass. Well, he also leads the league in on-target drop rates from wide receivers. So maybe if he had a little more of a sure-handed wide receiving core, his completion percentage would be a little higher, because that does ding his completion percentage, but he does also lead the league in on-target wide receiver drop percentage. Those things have to be married together. They have to be handcuffed. Just like a fantasy draft, if you're going to draft Dalvin Cook, you got to take Alexander Mattison. You have to, because you need to handcuff them, just like you need to handcuff certain stats together. Jimmy Garoppolo restructured, which says a lot about Trey Lance, which also obviously says a lot about Jimmy Garoppolo's progression in terms of coming back from the injury. There's not many free agent quarterbacks for the Buccaneers to realistically look at next year. I can try to pull these up and look real quick on the fly. Obviously, there's no producer here. We're hiring. If you want to be the producer for this show and you live in the Tampa area, you let me know. I'm also not really joking about that. There's going to be questions. Like we're going to have questions at quarterback next year, obviously. Does Tom Brady come? And there's always the chance, guys. There's always a small chance that Tom Brady does return next season. It's a small chance, but there is a chance. I mean, because here's the issue. If we're going through the available quarterbacks outside of Tom Brady, you got Baker Mayfield, Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum, Daniel Jones, Jacoby Brissett, Lamar. And here's the scary part is Blaine Gabbert is also going to be a free agent next year. So you can't even look and go, well, they've got Blaine Gabbert on the roster next year, so everything will be okay, because they don't. So that's also going to be problematic for the Buccaneers, is that the only quarterback on the roster as of this point right now for next season is one Kyle Trask. And if you look at Kyle Trask and you can honestly tell me, and please tell me, if you can look at Kyle Trask right now and say he is ready to be the starting quarterback for the Buccaneers next year, please tell me. I would love to hear the rationale behind why you believe such a moronic statement. I would love to hear why you think that Kyle Trask is going to be good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL next season when he's not even good enough to be a backup quarterback this season? Just please hop in the chat and tell me. That's all I want to know. That's kind of all I got for the Bucks on the roster moves right now. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm still a little shocked. I'll throw this thing back up here for you guys to see. Obviously, they kept 4 tight ends. Blocking Machine Co. is in the TE4 spot. I'm still shocked that Rachaad White is in the 4th spot in terms of obviously in the running back depth chart. I'm still shocked there largely because as of right now, we have not addressed left tackle. We have not, or left guard. I apologize. We have not addressed the center. And out of the 4 running backs that we have, Rachaad White is the best blocking running back. I would have expected Rachaad White to be pushed forward. I thought that Giovanni Bernard might have been a cut yesterday, in all honesty. And I love Gio, but he's over the hill at this point in his career. I thought Gio was going to be a cut. I thought that Keshawn Vaughn was going to drop to RB3 and Rachaad White was going to go to RB2, not based off of running ability, because we still have question marks about how Rachaad White is going to perform at this level. We saw some questionable decisions. We saw some weird hesitations from Rachaad White during the preseason, but he can block and he can protect Tom Brady better than any of the other running backs on the team, and that has to account for something. He's a solid. All the running backs that the Bucs have are they're very solid pass catching running backs. And we know Tom Brady likes a good pass catching running back. James White made an entire career out of catching passes out of the backfield for Tom Brady. Hell, in every one of my fantasy leagues, I would pick up James White. I'm a PPR guy. Standard leagues are too boring. Standard leagues are boring as hell. I don't care about standard leagues. I care about PPR. But James White made an entire career off getting me 18 to 20 points per game because he was getting 6-7 receptions per game. And James White did that. And that's what, Leonard Fournette could be a league winner for a lot of people this season, especially if he has a season to replicate last year. Obviously, Ronald Jones was solidified as the RB2. And hey, kudos to Ronald Jones for making the squad out in Kansas City. There were rumors that he was going to get cut. But again, guys, we have to credit the source. If Pewter Report, and I know there's supposed to be some unspoken beef between Channelside Sports and Pewter Report. There's not. At least from our end, there's not. But if Pewter Report puts out an article and says so-and-so is going to get released, you believe it, right? You believe it. If Pro Football Network puts out an article and says so-and-so is going to be released, you don't believe it. Right? You don't believe it if that's the case. Because Pewter Report is legitimate. Pro Football Network has been busted I don't know how many times for having Indian followers and Asian followers by the thousands because they're not a legitimate source. Pewter Report puts out an article and they are correct. Bucks Report puts out an article. Who the hell are they? Exactly. Got to credit the source, guys. You have to take into accountability who your sources are and roll with the punches there. Speaking of rolling with the punches, we might wrap up here. We're having all kinds of technical difficulties internet-wise. Before the Rays took care of business against the Marlins, Shane McClanahan was supposed to pitch yesterday, and he was pulled during warm-ups for left shoulder impingement. That's not good, guys. That's not good. basically what that means is that he has inflammation in the shoulder. I know Kevin Cash says that he is cautiously optimistic about the prognosis of Shane McClanahan. And I think that's the best phrase that you could possibly use for this situation, is being cautiously optimistic. Because if it is a serious injury, we're looking at no less than a 3-month rehab. If it's a serious injury, 3 to 6 months is your typical time frame. That's your typical window of recovery. And if it's really bad, it can take up to 12 months. So yeah, it was a scary moment. It kind of took over Twitter. It halted. And here's how you know it was scary, because obviously the Buccaneers, outside of the Lightning, get all of the talking points on social media from our fan base, right? If you live in the Tampa area and you're a fan of all three sports teams, you're going to have a 1A, 1B with the Lightning and with the Bucks, and then you're going to have a number 2 with the Tampa Bay Rays. And that's just the order of operations in terms of importance for a lot of fans here. And there's nothing wrong with that. Baseball is a ridiculously long season. For the most part, it's not nearly as exciting as either hockey or football. It doesn't move as fast and whatever. But Shane McClanahan getting pulled during warmups of the game yesterday halted the vast majority of Buccaneers conversation on social media. And everything shifted over. And I'll be damned if this is not the icing on the cake for the Tampa Bay Rays in this season. Is it not? Every single player on this Rays team has seen the injured list at some point this season. You know, I was looking at it yesterday and I was going, wow, Shane McClanahan is not that far behind Justin Verlander in the win column. You know, Justin Verlander is still the favorite to win the AL Cy Young, which is crazy because I feel like Justin Verlander's been pitching since I was in high school. And then this happens. Justin Verlander, of course, he's on the 15-day IL now, and I was looking at it going, all right, so here we go. Here's an opportunity. McClanahan is only, I think he was like 9 strikeouts away from leading the league. Once again, perfect. This is an opportunity for McClanahan to seize it and take that AL Cy Young. Well, now this comes. Now I feel that the Cy Young is going to be out of the window because he's going to have to miss some time. You can't pull your pitcher from warmups while he's supposed to be in rotation and not have him miss a couple of games. So if he even goes, let's say he has to go on the 15-day IL. That's still a huge blow because you don't have Glasnow back. You don't have Boz back. And now we're talking about a team that had all of this momentum moving forward. The pitching was great. The rotation was great. They were coming alive at the plate finally. They were scoring runs. If you lose your ace, can the Rays still make the playoffs? If McClanahan goes down, let's say McClanahan goes down for the remainder of the season, do the Rays make the playoffs? I think with as much as I want to believe in this team, the AL is just too tight. It is too tight for the top 2 wildcard spots. And I think that if Shane McClanahan is going to miss the remainder of the season, of course, this is an if because there's no official prognosis and diagnosis of the actual injury, which we will find out hopefully later on today, if not tomorrow. But if Shane McClanahan happens to miss the remainder of the season, I do not see any way that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to make the playoffs at this point. I think that the Cinderella story is over, the Cinderella season. And I'm using the term Cinderella season solely for the fact that were they supposed to make the playoffs this season? They were. They came off of 100 wins. but they've lost basically every one of their starters, and they should not have made the playoffs, but they were still in the picture. They're still leading the AL wild card race. So it is a Cinderella story because they should be here right now, but they are. You're one game up of the Blue Jays, and you're a half game up on the Mariners. And I know that you hold the tiebreaker over both of them, which is great. But the gap's not large enough for you to feel comfortable if you're going to lose Shane McClanahan. And that is the part that is scary. That's the part that you don't want to have to go into September with, because if you've got the second most difficult schedule to finish the season, you can't lose your ace. You've got no Wander Franco. You've got no Shane McClanahan. You've got no Shane Baz. You've got no Tyler Glass now. You've got no Kevin Kiermaier. If the Rays happen to make the playoffs, if Shane McClanahan misses more than 15 days, I will happily go on a hill and I will call the Rays to win the World Series if they happen to make the playoffs, because that will mean that they are by far the most dangerous team in baseball. If you can take a bunch of replacements essentially and make the playoffs, by all means, I will be happy. I will be happy to eat that slice of humble pie if the Rays make the playoffs with all of these injuries and with the possibility of Shane McClanahan going down for a long period of time. And that's it. That's where I'm at. It's a scary situation right now, but you got to take it one day at a time. You have to be cautiously optimistic, just like Kevin Cash said. And that's all you can do about it. That is all you can do. It's just be cautiously optimistic. But you do have to have, as a fan, you do have to have a dose of realization and realism when you're looking at what is going on here. Talk about a halt in your momentum, huh? Man, but you know what though? Here's the thing. Here's the thing is the only saving grace for the possibility of losing Shane McClanahan is that your starting pitcher doesn't start every single game. That's the only saving grace if a pitcher goes down during your season, is that he's not pitching every game. If you lose a Randy Rosarina, if you lose a Tom Brady, if you lose a LeBron James, if you lose your guys that play every game, that's a much larger blow. Now, Shane McClanahan, he is the ace. He is the best pitcher on this team. So don't dumb it down and think that I'm saying that he's losing him is not a big deal. But I'm just saying, if you compare losing a pitcher to losing an everyday player, it's not nearly as bad. That's the only silver lining in this entire Shane McClanahan situation. Guys, we're going to wrap up early today. We're having all sorts of technical difficulties. Unfortunately, I'll hit the old trombone here because this is how I feel about today. But it's okay. We'll be back tomorrow, as you know. Figure out all the technical difficulties today. And we'll keep rolling with it. Thank you for those who tuned in. I think we got up to like 37 viewers at one point. So appreciate everybody that tuned in this morning. It was awesome of you. Thank you for those who chimed into the chat. Make sure you follow the Channelside Sports Network on all of these social media platforms. That includes TikTok. 100,000 views over the weekend. Ridiculous. Didn't realize that TikTok loved sports that much. But anyway, I am Danny. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow. This is Channelside in the Morning, live from the Channelside Sports